Every morning at this time, we have what we call the big story, and that is where we're headed right now. So the private sector organization of Jamaica, the PSOJ, their president, Mitri Siaga, has defended the appointment of Dennis Chung as Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigations Division, the FID. He disagrees with PNP President Mark Golding, who criticized Chung's appointment, citing bias and lack of qualifications. Siaga believes Chung is suited for the role and suggests the Office of the Services Commission should confirm whether changes were made to the job qualifications. Meanwhile, Mitri Siaga welcomes the introduction of job descriptions for members of Parliament. Well, joining me this morning is well-known businessman, commercial lawyer, and transparency advocate, of course, Howard Mitchell, who is on with us. He's also on in his capacity as a former president of the private sector organization of Jamaica. Good morning, Mr. Howard Mitchell, and how are you today this morning?
Good morning, sir. Good morning. I'm fine. Thank God. God has blessed me with life.
Absolutely. Nice having you on the program. We haven't spoken like this for a little while. Great having you once again, Howard.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Same here. Now, how do you respond, first of all, to critics who are arguing that Dennis Chung's appointment may have been influenced by his connections or his background?
Well, first of all, maybe it's my legal training, but I like to operate on the basis of facts. Secondly, Jamaica is a small society. It's a shallow pool of competence that is available for the difficult jobs. Right?
Yes.
Now, there's no question that Mr. Chung, at a particular time prior to his appointment, and presumably prior to the consideration of his appointment, expressed a particular view on some of the activities referred to in the Integrity Commission of the Prime Minister. And he's entitled to his opinion. We are a free speech country, and we are, as far as I know, still a liberal democracy. However, some quarters have said that it indicates a certain bias of mind, and it very well may do so. Mm-hmm. But God has given us the power of thought and of reasoning. And Mr. Chung was not at the time in a position to know the facts and to investigate the facts. What has happened now, and I'm addressing it in two ways, the bias and the change of employment.
Yeah, yes.
What has happened now is he has been given that opportunity to go in and lead an organization. And don't forget that they are competent, honest, hardworking, ethical people in that organization who have proven themselves over time. And he's going to lead those people, and those people will present to him certain facts. Mr. Chung has the opportunity to establish if in fact he is a true Jamaican, and if in fact he is a person of integrity who will honestly carry forward whatever conclusion the investigative activities of the FID come up with. No, you may say that's a naive point of view and he's going to suppress it. There's nothing in his background that indicates that. So that as far as the question of bias is concerned, I think we have to maintain something of an open mind and make sure that Mr. Chung is held accountable in his actions by public opinion and by the resources available to us in the court. Now, as far as the issue of the change of terms of employment is concerned,
yeah,
I'm a transparency advocate. The Office of the Services Commission is a tool of the ministries of government. It does not invent a job. It does not bring people in and say, here, you need this person in your ministry. It acts on the instructions of the ministry, the particular ministry, to find and to go through a process of evaluation and recommendation of persons who the ministry, the relevant ministry, wants employed. Now, the FID, the Financial Investigation Division, reports to the Minister of Finance, or at least the Financial Secretary. That is, the Ministry of Finance is the constituted authority. Why is it that the Ministry of Finance is not coming out with an explanation as to why they changed the terms of reference of the employment of this person, and what was the motivation behind it, and whether or not there were people who were qualified under the previous terms, and who else was qualified. And they don't have to call names. What they have to show us is that there were other candidates, and those other candidates were, by virtue of their resumes, not qualified to serve. And Mr. Chung was the most obvious candidate. That is an obligation they have to us as servants of the people under the Constitution, not to just come out and say, oh, Mr. Chung is an honest person and a person of integrity and suitable for the job. We have to see the evidence. And I'm sorry, the referral to the Access to Information Act, to me, is a cop-out. And it appears to be an opportunity to try and defer the thing and have the public forget. Now, I am a transparency advocate, but I am also very, very serious about the fact that people of Jamaica, in order to preserve their democracy, must wake up. They must realize that it is our responsibility to keep the politicians, the political directorate, and the servants of the people on their toes and responsive. So, in some, yeah, Mr. Chung expressed his opinion, but opinions can be changed in the face of facts. Two, in terms of the employment, the change of employment references, the ministry has an obligation to explain it to us.
Yes. All right. Now, you spoke about Mr. Chung's background earlier, Howard. To the best of your knowledge, what specific qualities or experiences do you think that he possesses that makes him a suitable candidate for the position that he now holds at the FID, in your opinion?
His qualifications and experience have trained him in analytic competence. Furthermore, he has proven himself to be a manager in fairly difficult circumstances because he was the executive chairman of the Solid Waste Management Authority, which is a difficult environment. So I am not jumping up and saying that he doesn't have managerial ability, which is what he's called for as the technical director of the Financial Investigative Division. However, given that in the past it appears that the person in that position required forensic investigative training and some degree of training in money laundering abilities. Mr. Chung, we have to understand why the job reference was changed. Now, Mr. Chung came out and said that he didn't see anything wrong with a person having 28 accounts, and that it wasn't in breach of the money laundering principles. I beg to differ. There is competent authority and considerable authority to say that the holding of multiple accounts constitute an initial red flag that requires investigation into money laundering activities. Well, this is established anti-money laundering principles. So I think Mr. Chung may have misinterpreted the rules. He had an opinion then, which I take to be an uninformed opinion. But he does have the competence to inform himself. And simply on the statement of his opinion, I am not going to join the bandwagon of calling for his resignation. I am going to make sure that I observe what he is doing over the coming months. Mm-hmm.
Now, the position of the private sector organization of Jamaica obviously puts the PSOJ sort of on a collision course with the views of the opposition. We are in a year when a general election could be called or is expected to be called, and who knows, they could become the government, for instance, if they're successful at the elections. Do you see any problems going forward in terms of the relationship between the PSOJ and the People's National Party, based on the position the PSOJ has taken?
I'm not a member of the executive of the PSOJ, but all I can do is express my personal opinion.
Yes.
I presume that before the president spoke, he canvassed the views of his executive committee, which is what he's supposed to do. I also presume that the leader of the opposition, in his disagreement, will not in other words, keep a grudge on this matter. But the fact is that from time to time in history, the views of the private sector have differed from the views of the political directorate, and that is part of the warp and woof of a democratic society. So I would say I wouldn't encourage any civil society organization to take a view that is colored or driven by your anxiety to conform to the political directorate's views.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the PSOJ has a responsibility to maybe say more to give the confidence, make the public confident in their ability to be unbiased and not influenced by special interest in matters like these?
Well, again, this is my personal opinion, yes. But I do think that the private sector organization of Jamaica has perhaps narrowly confined itself to only the interests of its members, and it has perhaps forgotten that as a part of civil society, it has an obligation to the wider community, and that I hope that the position it has taken will be modified by a continued pressure to get the facts behind the Chung appointment. Mm-hmm. That is what my hope is, because at the end of the day, the PSOJ needs to understand that it has to subscribe to the principles of equality, the principles of participation, and the principles of accountability in the society.
Okay. Before you go, Mr. Mitchell, I'd like to get your thought on the matter of the introduction of job descriptions for MPs. Do you think it's something that will improve governance and accountability in Jamaica?
You know, I've heard this argument that job descriptions, you can't have job descriptions for politicians because their responsibilities are so broad. They have made their responsibilities broad because over the years they have intermeddled in every aspect of civil society and not allowed civil society to develop its own competencies. The job description that has now been put before the Parliament, in my humble opinion, is a travesty. It does not adequately describe the responsibilities of the MP. It does not adequately hold an MP to book, other than every 5 years in an election, which over the years has become kind of watered down. And I think that it needs the public of Jamaica needs to pay attention to these things and to help us develop a job description which adequately describes what we want the MPs to do.
Howard Mitchell, always a pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much for your time and your thoughts this morning. Have a great day.
You too, my friend, on all